Memorize some bit of verse of truth or beauty. It may serve a turn in your life. Welcome to Reading High's Poetry Out Loud competition, our celebration of Edgar Lee Masters' advice on memorizing a poem. This is the 14th year for our competition here at Reading High and the 15th year of the National Poetry Out Loud competition. We're very proud over the years that we have had many students achieve recognition at the regional level, and we've had 2 students represent the state of Pennsylvania at the national competition. But more than that, we are proud that over 14 years, many, many students have committed a piece of poetry to memory. They've learned verse by heart. We believe in the transformative power of literature, and we know no better way than memorizing a poem to experience that power. This is something that's important for the life of our students and for the life of our country. I would like to introduce and thank our judges for the competition tonight. We have Dr. Al Casasado, Chair of the English Department at Albright College, Dr. Heather Thomas, Professor of English at Kutztown University and former Berks County Poet Laureate, Ms. Jill Sheets, a poet and a writer, and Mr. John Gassert, a director whose productions of 1776 and The Crucible were highlights of the Fall Festival here in Berks County. The judges will be evaluating our student performers today on physical presence, voice and articulation, dramatic appropriateness, evidence of understanding, and overall performance. Additionally, an accuracy judge will be scoring the students. Following a small interlude at the end of the first recitations, the students with the highest scores will recite a second poem. Then the scores will be combined to determine the Reading High Poetry Out Loud champion for 2020. I'd like to thank several people who are involved in making this endeavor happen. First of all, the English departments at the high school. Also, Mrs. Susan Wagner, who has coached our students for many years, both at the local competition level and on as they advance. Also, Mrs. Lori McGovern, who is keeping score, Mr. Kyle Brown and the Nightlife crew, who are taping this performance, the Reading High School National Honor Society student greeters, and particular English teachers, Mr. Thomas Hughes, who's been doing this for a long time, and then those folks who were present at the creation of this 14 years ago, Mrs. Jerry Correnda, Mrs. Angela Rodriguez, and Ms. Paige Seckler. It is an endeavor which we find to be very important. We greatly enjoy it, and we think we're contributing something important to the lives of our students. Without further ado, I'd like to begin the competition with our first reciter. The order was chosen randomly, and our first reciter is Symphony Mitchell.
Barter by Sarah Teasdale. Life has loveliness to sell, all beautiful and splendid things, blue waves whitened on a cliff, soaring fire that sways and sings, and children's faces looking up, holding wonder like a cup. Life has loveliness to sell, music like a curve of gold, scent of pine trees in the rain, eyes that love you, arms that hold, and for your spirit still delight, holy thoughts that star the night. Spend all you have for loveliness, buy it, and never count the cost. For one white singing hour of peace, count many a year of strife, well lost. And for a breath of ecstasy, give all that you have been or could be.
Next, Paulina Ceballos Feliz.
Requests for Toy Piano by Tony Hoagland. Play the one about the family of the ducks, where the ducks go down to the river, and one of them thinks the water will be cold. But then they jump in anyway and like it and splash around. No, I must play the one about the nervous man from Palestine in row 14, with a brown bag in his lap in which a gun is hidden in a sandwich. Play the one about the handsome man and woman standing on the steps of her apartment, and how the darkness and her perfume and the beating of their hearts conjoin to make them feel like leaping from the edge of chance. No, I should play the one about the hard rectangle of the credit card hidden in the man's back pocket, and how the woman spent an hour plucking out her brows, and how her perfume was made from the destruction of 100 flowers. Then, play the one about the flower industry, in which the migrant workers curse their own infected hands from tossing sheaves of roses and carnations into the back of the refrigerated trucks. No, I should play the one about the single yellow daffodil standing on my kitchen table, whose cut stem draws the water upwards so that the plant is flushed with the conviction that the water has been sent to find and raise it up from somewhere so deep inside the earth, not even flowers can remember.
Our next reciter is Kristen Batista.
To Have Without Holding by Marge Piercy. Learning to love differently is hard. To love with the hands wide open, love with the doors banging on their hinges, the cupboard unlocked, the wind roaring and whimpering in the rooms, rustling the sheets and snapping the blinds that thwack like rubber bands in an open palm. It hurts to love wide open, stretching the muscles that feel as if they're made of wet plaster, then of blunt knives, then of sharp knives. It hurts to thwart the reflexes of grab, of clutch, to love and let go again and again. It pesters to remember the lover who is not in the bed, to hold back what is owed to the work that gutters like a candle in a cave without air, to love consciously, conscientiously, concretely, constructively. I can't do it. You say it's killing me, but you thrive. You glow on the street like a neon raspberry. You float and sail, a helium balloon, bright bachelor's button blue, and bobbing on the cold and hot winds of our breath. As we make and unmake, in the passionate diastole and systole, the rhythm of our unbound bonding, to have and not to hold, to love with minimized malice, hunger and anger, moment by moment, balanced.
Aaron Oliver is next.
Harold's Chicken Shack, number 86, by Nate Marshall. We're trying to eliminate the shack. Kristen Pierce, Harold CEO and daughter of founder Harold Pierce. When I went to summer camp, the white kids had a tendency to shorten names of important institutions, make Northwestern University into NU, international relations into IR. Everybody started calling me Nate. Before this, I imagined myself Nathaniel A. Maybe even N. Armstead. To big up my granddad, I wrote my whole name on everything. Eventually, I started unintentionally introducing myself as Nate. It never occurred to me that they could escape the knowing of my name's real length. As a shorty, most of the kids in my neighborhood couldn't say my name. McDaniel, Nickthaniel, MacDonald shot across the courts like wild heaves towards the basket. The subconscious visual of a chicken shack seems a poor fit for a national expansion. Harold's Chicken is easier. Sounds like Columbus's flag stuck into a cup of coleslaw. Shack sounds too much like home for poor people, like haven for weary, like building our own.
Next, excuse me. Next is Giovanni Martinez Cruz.
Faith by David Baker. It was midday before we noticed it was morning. The boy cousins brought us a tray. Soup and cheese, warm soda, and a soft cloth and candy for her fever. They wouldn't come in, the tray weighing between them. They stood like woodwork inside the door frame. By afternoon, the old procession. Silence at the lip of a dozen night travelers, tired and grieving. One by one, or pairs flowing to the bed and back, with a touching of hands like humming. And the one we gathered for, slipping farther for all the good we can do. She lay in her shadow. She looked to no one. Her daily leaves bobbed wide open, out in the wild blue sun, and the same bee kept trying to nose them. Dusk. Even the boys were back, watching it try.
Next is Mariana Vasquez.
A Song in the Front Yard by Gwendolyn Brooks. I've stayed in the front yard all my life. I want to peek at the back, where it's rough and untended and hungry weed grows. My girl gets sick of a rose. I want to go in the backyard now, maybe down the alley to where the charity children play. I want a good time today. They do some wonderful things. They have some wonderful fun. My mother sneers, but I say it's fine. How they don't have to go in at 8:45. My mother, she tells me that Johnny May will grow up to be a bad woman, that George will be taken to jail sooner or late. On account of last winter, he sold our back gate. But I say it's fine. Honest, I do. And I'd like to be a bad woman too, and wear the brave stockings of night black lace and strut down the streets with paint on my face.
Next, Fransmari Velez Gaspar.
I am offering this poem by Jimmy Santiago Baca. I am offering this poem to you since I have nothing else to give. Keep it like a warm coat when winter comes to cover you, or like a pair of thick socks the cold cannot bite through. I love you. I have nothing else to give you. So it is a pot full of yellow corn to warm your belly in winter. It is a scarf for your head to wear over your hair, to tie up around your face. I love you. Keep it. Treasure this as you would if you were lost, needing direction in the wilderness life becomes when mature. And tucked away like a cabin or hogan in dense trees, come knocking and I will answer, give you directions, and let you warm yourself by this fire. Rest by this fire and make you feel safe. I love you. It's all I have to give and all anyone needs to live. And to go on living inside when the world outside no longer cares if you live or die. Remember, I love you.
Our next reciter is Joanna Belza.
Advice from La Llorona by Deborah A. Miranda, a found poem. Each grief has its unique side. Choose the one that appeals to you. Go gently. Your body needs energy to repair the amputation. Humor phantom pain. Your brain cells are soaked with salt. Connections fail unexpectedly and often. Ask for help. Accept help. Read your grief like the daily newspaper. Headlines may have information you need. Scream. Drop kick the garbage can across the street. Don't feel guilty if you have a good time. Don't act as if you haven't been hit by a Mack truck. Do things a little differently, but don't make a lot of changes. Revel in contradiction. Talk to the person who died. Give her a piece of your mind. Try to touch someone at least once a day. Approach grief with determination. Pretend the finish line doesn't keep receding. Lean into the pain. You can't outrun it.
Our next participant is Perla Solis Ruiz.
Acquainted with the Night by Robert Frost. I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I have looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed by the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street. But not to call me back or say goodbye, and further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night.
The next contestant is Daniela Garcia.
"100 Love Sonnets, 17, by Pablo Neruda, translated by Mark Eisner. I don't love you as if you were a rose of salt, topaz, or arrow of carnations that propagate fire. I love you as one loves certain obscure things, secretly, between the shadow and the soul. I love you as the plant that doesn't bloom but carries the lights of those flowers hidden within itself. And thanks to your love, the tight aroma that arose from the earth lives dimly in my body. I love you without knowing how, or when, or from where. I love you like this because I don't know any other way to love, except in this form in which I am not, nor are you. So close that your hand upon my chest is mine. So close that your eyes close with my dreams.
Our next participant is Rania Tabares.
A Locked House by W.D. Snodgrass. As we drove back, crossing the hill, the house still hidden in the trees, I always thought, a fool's fear, that it might have caught fire. Someone could have broken in, as if things must have been too good here. Still, we always found it locked tight, safe and sound. I mentioned that once as a joke. No doubt we spoke of the absurdity, to fear some door god's jealousy of our good fortune. From the farm next door, our neighbors saw no harm came to the things we cared for here. What did we have to fear? Maybe I should have thought. All such things rot, fall. Barns, houses, furniture. We two are stronger than we were apart. We've grown together. Everything we own can burn. We know what counts, some such idea. We said as much. We'd watched friends driven to betray, felt that love drained away some self they need. We'd said love, like a growth, can feed on hate we turn in and disguise. We warned ourselves that you might despise me, hate all we both loved best. None of us ever guessed. The house still stands, locked, as it stood untouched a good 2 years after you went. Some things passed in the settlement. Some things slipped away. Enough's left that I come back sometimes. The theft and vandalism were our own. Maybe we should have known.
Our next contestant is Yohemi Familia Paredes.
And Soul by Evan Boland. My mother died one summer, the wettest in the records of the state. Crops rotted in the west. Checked tablecloths dissolved in back gardens. Empty deck chairs collected rain. As I took my way to her through traffic, through lilacs dripping blackly behind houses and on curbsides, to pay her the last tribute of a daughter, I thought of something I remembered I heard once, that the body is, or is said to be, almost all water. And as I turned southward, that ours is a city of it, one in which every single day the elements begin a journey towards each other that will never, given our weather, fail. The ocean visible and the edges cut by it, cloud color reaching into air, the Liffey storing one and summoning the other, salt greeting the lack of it at their north wall, and, as if that wasn't enough, all of it, almost every evening, ending up inside her speech. Coast, canal, ocean, river, stream, and now mother. And I drove on. And although the mind is unreliable in grief, at the next cloudburst it almost seemed they could be shades of each other. The way the body is of every one of them. And now they were on the move again. Fog into mist, mist into sea spray, and both into the oily glaze that lay on the railings of the house she was dying in as I went inside.
The next reciter is Luisana Cruz.
My Brother the Artist at 7 by Philip Levine. As a boy, he played alone in the fields behind our block. 6 frame houses holding 6 immigrant families. The parents speaking only gibberish to their neighbors. Without the kids, they couldn't say good morning and be understood. Little wonder he learned early to speak to himself, to tell no one what truly mattered. How much can matter to a kid of 7? Everything, the whole world can be his. Just after dawn, he sneaks out to hide in the wild, bleached grasses of August and pretends he's grown up. Someone completes in himself without the need for anyone. A warrior from the ancient places our fathers fled years before. Those magic places. Kiev, Odessa, the Crimea, Port Said, Alexandria, Lisbon, the Canaries, Caracas, Galveston. In the damp grass, he recites the names over and over in a hushed voice while the sun climbs into the locust tree to waken the houses. The husbands leave for work. The women return to bed. The kids bend to porridge and milk. He advances slowly, eyes fixed, an animal or a god, while beneath him, the earth holds its breath.
Our next participant is Racel Diaz Hernandez.
God's Grandeur by Gerard Manley Hopkins. The world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil. It gathers to a greatness like the ooze of oil crushed. Why do men then now not reck his rod? Generations have trod, and all is seared with trade, bleared, smeared with toil, and wears man's smudge and shares man's smell. The soil is bare now, nor can foot feel being shod. And for all this, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest, freshness deep down things. And though the last lights off the black west went, oh, morning at the brown brink eastward springs, because the Holy Ghost over the bent world broods, with warm breast and with, bright wings.
Our next reciter is Dasani Armstrong.
Awaking in New York by Maya Angelou. Curtains forcing their will against the wind, children sleep, exchanging dreams with seraphim. The city drags itself up on subway straps, and I, an alarm as awake as rumors of war, lie stretching into dawn, unasked and unheeded.
We've been doing this a long time, and the way that you students performed was absolutely amazing. We always think that this competition is about as hard as regionals, and almost anybody here could win our regional competition, and that seems to have turned out fairly frequently, but just a wonderful job. Now, the students who will continue: Mariana Vasquez, Joanna Belza, Rania Tabares, Luisa Cruz, and Racel Diaz Hernandez. Would they please go backstage, and they will recite in the order that they appear on the program. Our first competitor in round 2 is Mariana Vasquez.
I Remember, by Thomas Hood. I remember the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at morn. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day. But now, I often wish the night had borne my breath away. I remember the roses, red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light, the lilacs where the robin built, and where my brother set the laburnum on his birthday. The tree is living yet. I remember where I was used to swing, and thought the air must rush as fresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in feathers then, that is so heavy now, and summer pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. I remember the fir trees, dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was a childish ignorance, but now, 'tis little joy to know I'm farther off from heaven than when I was a boy.
Our second competitor, Joanna Belza.
The Obligation to Be Happy by Linda Paston. It is more onerous than the rights of beauty or housework, harder than love. But you expected of me casually, the way you expect the sun to come up, not in spite of rain or clouds, but because of them. And so I smile, as if my own fidelity to sadness were a hidden vice. That downward tug on my mouth, my old suspicion that health and love are brief irrelevancies, no more than laughter in the warm dark strangled at dawn. Happiness. I try to hoist it on my narrow shoulders again, a knapsack heavy with gold coins. I stumble around the house, bump into things. Only Midas himself would understand.
Our third reciter is Rania Tabaras.
For a Traveler by Jessica Greenbaum. I only have a moment, so let me tell you the shortest story about arriving at a long-loved place, the house of friends in Maine. Their lawn of wild flowers, their grandfather clock and candid portraits, their gabled attic rooms and wood stove in the kitchen. All accessories of the genuine summer years before, when I was their son's girlfriend and tied an apron around my neck beneath my braids and took from their garden the harvest for a dinner I would make alone and serve at their big table with the gladness of the found and loved. The eggplant shone like polished wood. The tomatoes smelled like their furred collars. The dozen zucchini lined up on the counter like placid troops with the onions, their minions. And I even remember the garlic, each clove from its airmail envelope brought to the cutting board, ready for my instruction. And in this very slight story, a decade later, I came by myself, having been brought by the airport cab, and waited for the family to arrive home from work. I walked into the lawn waist-high in the swaying purple lupins, the subject of June's afternoon light as I had never been addressed. A displaced young woman with cropped hair, no place to which I wished to return, and no one to gather me in his arms. That day the lupins received me, and I was in love with them because they were all I had left. And in that same manner, I have loved much of the world since then. And who is to say there is more of a reason or more to love?
Our next reciter in round 2 is Louisiana Cruz.
A Locked House by W.D. Snodgrass. As we drove back crossing the hill, the house still hidden in the trees, I always thought, a fool's fear, that it might have caught fire, someone could have broken in. As if things must have been too good here. Still, we always found it locked tight, safe and sound. I mentioned that once, as a joke. No doubt we spoke of the absurdity to fear some doer god's jealousy of our good fortune. From the farm next door, our neighbors saw no harm came to the things we cared for here. What did we have to fear? Maybe I should have thought all such things rot, fall. Barns, houses, furniture. We two are stronger than we were apart. We've grown together. Everything we own can burn. We know what counts. Some such idea. We said as much. We'd watch friends driven to betray. Felt that love drained away some self they need. We said love, like a growth, can feed on hate we turn in disguise. We warned ourselves that you might despise me, hate all we both loved best. None of us ever guessed. The house still stands, locked, as it stood untouched a good 2 years after you went. Some things passed in the settlement. Some things slipped away. Enough's left that I come back sometimes. The theft and vandalism were our own. Maybe we should have known.
Our fifth performer is Racel Diaz Hernandez.
El Olvido by Judith Ortiz Kofer. It is a dangerous thing to forget the climate of your birthplace, to choke out the voices of dead relatives when in dreams they call you by your secret name. It is dangerous to spurn the clothes you were born to wear for the sake of fashion. Dangerous to use weapons and sharp instruments you are not familiar with. Dangerous to disdain the plaster saints before which your mother kneels praying with embarrassing fervor that you survive in the place you have chosen to live. A bare, cold room with no pictures on the walls, a forgetting place where she fears you will die of loneliness and exposure. Jesus, Maria y Jose, she says, el olvido is a dangerous thing.
All right, that concludes our competition, and our judges are making their final selections. The exciting moment has come. Would all the competitors please join me up here on stage? Yes, I want them all. Let's get everybody up here. All 15 of you. I have certificates for all of you, but first I would like to announce that representing Reading High School in the regional competition in 2020 will be Racel Diaz Hernandez. And our first runner-up is Joanna Belza. So congratulations to both of you.